No. All right, good afternoon. Welcome to a 6 News Now update. I'm William Ingles, joined by Matt Christensen. And Matt, you have been in the courtroom today with a really big case that we've been following with Lisa Streeter.
Right. This is Lisa Streeter. She is a former administrative assistant for Rock Island County who's been accused of stealing almost $1 million in taxpayer funds over the course of 2 decades.
Right, and I mean, by that standard alone, it's a case of high interest. She was back in court today. What are kind of some of the things that we're starting to learn as this case really kind of develops and gets into the real meat and potatoes of what we normally see as these proceedings go along?
Sure thing. This was a kind of a typical court process today, but in some ways it wasn't. So at a preliminary hearing like the one that happened today, she entered a plea of not guilty. But then there was some argument over whether cameras would be allowed in the courtroom. Her public defender doesn't want the media in there, but the judge ruled against that. And then Dora Villarreal, who's the Rock Island County State's attorney, was the lead prosecutor this morning, and that's interesting because she only handles like a few cases at a time.
Exactly, yeah. The state's attorney has a number of duties, kind of not only touching base on all the other attorneys that are trying all the other cases in Rock Island County, so it kind of makes that caseload, especially in a larger county like Rock Island County, that caseload has to be pretty low.
Yeah.
So,
this is perhaps the largest embezzlement case of public funds in Rock Island County history.
It's certainly possible.
Streeter's accused of using the money on entertainment, travel, food, all kinds of things. They've frozen her bank accounts, but investigators are still looking into some of those finances, and there's still hundreds of thousands of dollars that are unaccounted for.
Right, and I mean, you've been doing this a while. I've been doing this a while as well. I mean, $900,000 in embezzlement, especially over that kind of time period, is not common. And it goes to speak, to the level of this case.
Absolutely, and I think what prosecutors say allowed her to do this was that it was small amounts over a long period of time. It wasn't just like an instant. She wrote a check to herself. She was taking small payments. But when you break it down, I did the math on this, and over those years that she's accused of doing this, it would have amounted to about $43,000 a year. And I looked this up. That's about what a typical administrative assistant makes at Rock Island County. So we're talking about almost a full salary.
Right, a full salary per year that could have been used to hire someone else to help with the court process, or that's another, deputy on the streets potentially. I mean, it's big stakes when you talk about that and how it adds up over time. Another issue was brought because the first thing that happened is, and this was before today, is figuring out whether or not she is in jail before a trial or whether she gets to be out before a trial. And we kind of got a little bit of an update because, of course, you saw her walking on the video just a little bit ago. She is out on pretrial release, and we got a little bit more information and background on that today.
Right. When she was first arrested, she was placed on a GPS monitoring device, an ankle bracelet is what a lot of folks refer to it as. And then today, her public defender tried to argue that that bracelet should be removed because she didn't pose a flight risk. In Illinois, it's usually presumed now with the Safety Act that unless you commit a violent crime or some other higher level crime, that you get released until your court appearances or your trials start. And in this case, that was the same. Streeter was released with a GPS monitor, but today her lawyer argued that should be removed. The judge said no, that she needs to continue to wear that. Because of just the amount of money that was taken here, presents the opportunity for her to be a flight risk. And then the state's attorney said, hey, we're still investigating this, so there could be more charges coming.
Right. There are 2 things that can pop up. You mentioned the Safety Act. One is a danger to the community, which with this particular charge, of course, it's not like
it's a white collar.
Yeah, she didn't go out and beat anybody up. It's not like she's a physical danger to anybody. The other issue is flight risk, and that's how they try to address it with the ankle monitor. And then also, I believe you mentioned she handed in her passport today, which really reduces where she could be a flight risk to if she were to take that step.
Right, and it got handed directly to a deputy in the courtroom, and now it's in their custody.
One last thing I want to touch on before we go is that there are some things that we typically get to know at this time in a case that we do not know right now, and that's before you can decide whether or not someone can be released pretrial, there is a factual summary that usually has to come out, and that's where the state's attorney and prosecutors usually give kind of like all the list of evidence that they have to show, really, if anything, like reflect on the character, reflect on the danger it could, have to our society if this person is out on pretrial release. We have not gotten a chance to see that.
No, in fact, that's been sealed. And I don't think we're going to get a chance to see that.
Right.
Unless this plays out goes to a full trial, right?
Exactly.
So, there's a lot of questions right now. We know that investigators have tied the money to a few major purchases, or there's reason to believe that some of these major purchases might be connected to the alleged thefts, and those include. A large pickup truck, a camper, another car, so several vehicles, things like that. So, but this is an ongoing investigation, and until we can find out what investigators are learning, it's hard to keep up on these because, like you said, these cases get sealed, and it's because it's a high-profile case.
Exactly, and you talk about prejudicing a jury. If this is something that has a lot of eyeballs. We mentioned it might be the largest embezzlement case in Rock Island County history. That's going to command eyeballs, and if you're throwing out all that information for the public to see, now all of a sudden it's going to be really hard if you're going to keep this case in Rock Island County to be able to have it with a non-prejudiced jury, which then all of a sudden you're talking a change in venue, and that just creates a big logistical hassle, and also even an added cost on county taxpayers, which is exactly probably what Rock Island County is trying to prevent with kind of that looming headline over them that $900,000 was allegedly taken from them.
Right. Her public defender said in court today that I'd like my client to be treated just like any other, and I think that the judge definitely plans to do that throughout the course of these proceedings. But part of that is protecting her right to be presumed innocent.
Right. So that's going to be one of the big things we look at. Next court date not till next month, if I'm not mistaken.
June 24, but they set a trial date today of July 17th.
Gotcha. So those are some of the things we're going to be keeping an eye on. Of course, the Investigates team and all of us here at the TV6 Newsroom will be keeping an eye on this, again, high-profile story. So thank you for tuning in to the 6 News Now update. We'll catch you on the next one.